Welcome back to Brain Saver by Medical Medium. This is chapter 19 on pharmaceuticals. And before we begin, think about how many pharmaceuticals you've had today, maybe in the last week, in the last month, the last year. What about your whole lifetime? And have you thought while taking those pharmaceuticals, what are they doing to the body? What are the short-term symptoms it's causing? What are the long-term symptoms it's causing to the body? I know for me, when I used to take a plethora of medications, I never thought about it. I never thought once, what is this doing to me long-term, and is it causing harm? So if that's you, definitely stay tuned and listen to this chapter. All right, let's begin. So it starts with a bullet list of common pharmaceuticals: antibiotics, antidepressants, anti-inflammatories, sleeping pills, biologics, immunosuppressants, prescription amphetamines, opioids. I don't know how to say that. Opioids, that's how it is. Opioids. Anyway, opioids, Jesus. Statins, blood pressure medications, hormone medications, thyroid medications, steroids, the pill, pharmaceutical, alcohol, and recreational drugs. And that's probably just a short list. There's a lot of medications out there, and most people are on medications. Most people are on many medications. So yeah, let's continue. This is a short chapter, and I just want to say, if you are enjoying this series of me reading Medical Medium, go ahead and subscribe to me. I have been learning about marketing and advertisement this morning, and I was really sitting down with myself, and this is something I love. This is something I really do enjoy. As much as it is for fun, it's also for educational purposes and for resources. So yeah, go ahead and subscribe to me, and so I can make more videos. So it says, if you're on medication or you've received a medical treatment, you're aware of it. You may not be completely aware of what was in the medication. You at least know it was administered. What you might not know is what you were given in your early childhood or even babyhood that could still be in your system. It's very common to receive antibiotics early in life, pre-memory. Even if you've never taken medicine, pharmaceuticals could be in your brain and body system. So let's talk about how. Let's talk about water supply. More and more pharmaceuticals are entering the water supply because people who are taking them then eliminate them when they go to the bathroom. This also means that medication-laced water can become a part of our food through reservoirs, irrigation, public water supplies, well water near septic tanks, and fish swimming in lakes, rivers, and oceans. There are other ways to get this pharmaceutical-laced water, such as brushing our teeth, cooking with tap water, and swimming in lakes and rivers, pools, and water parks. Restaurant water normally contains pharmaceutical runoff. And the book cover just totally fell off just now. That's how much, like, if this isn't a true testament to how much I've looked at this book, it just fell off. Oh my gosh. Yeah, when I heard that water parks, even water parks, you're just swimming with this pool of pharmaceuticals in the water. So that definitely made me think twice about things. Okay, pools and water parks. Let's talk about it. Swimming in a pool or a water park doesn't only lead to pharmaceutical exposure via the water supply, there's also the runoff coming from people's bodies. When you're swimming in a hotel pool, for example, there's pharmaceutical runoff coming from people's skin and out of their armpits, their genitals, their mouth if they get water in their mouth, or even their urine or feces if they urinate, defecate, or pass gas in the pool. The pool water becomes a filter for what's in the gas. It's a pharmaceutical bath. Sure, they chlorinate the water to shock it for parasites, bacteria, and algae. That chlorine doesn't remove any of the pharmaceutical residue in the water supply or the runoff from people's skin. Those pharmaceuticals stay in the water unless the pool is fully drained. Pool water can stay in the pool for a very long time without ever getting a repair that calls for it to be drained. At a hotel, for example, you could have pharmaceutical-filled water for 5 straight years or more, where it concentrates year after year and doesn't dissipate. And pools never get tested for pharmaceuticals levels ever. They never get tested for pharmaceutical levels ever. So that's a little blurb. Let's talk about food supply. Antibiotic-fed animals translate to our... Sorry, I can't get comfortable. Antibiotic-fed animals translate to our ingesting antibiotics when we eat their eggs, meat, fish, and dairy. Even if you take care to find the highest quality, best treated animal products for when you prepare food at home, which is a great protective measure if you eat animal products, you've likely been unable to avoid eating conventional animal products when dining out or even eating at a friend's house, and that means antibiotic exposure. Even if you take great care to avoid eating animals fed antibiotics now, what about the first 10 years of your life, the first 20, or even the first 30? Those antibiotics that you were exposed to during a previous chapter in your life store up over your lifetime. Keep in mind grass-fed animals, grass-fed beef, free-range, pastured chicken, organic-fed pigs still occasionally get infections, get sick, and get treated with steroids and antibiotics. They're just not as saturated, for the most part, with antibiotics for chronic contagious infections as conventionally raised animals are. When chronic infections do occur with grass-fed animals, raised, free-range, and pastured, some animals are out of commission for a while due to an ongoing infection that takes a month to treat. Once recovered, the animal is back in the running again. It's still listed as grass-fed beef and ready for market when the time comes. We're shielded from this information, kept from the inside goes on. We think it's inconceivable that these animals have ever had something wrong with them, any kind of infection or illness. I don't want you under the illusion that you're not going to get antibiotics from grass-fed meat, because it's not true. So yeah, to clear that one up, you do still get antibiotics from eating grass-fed, pasture-raised animal products. More pharmaceutical exposure sources. A lot of people get medication exposure from the flea or tick powder or cream that they apply to their dogs and cats, or from flea and tick repelling pet collars. Intimacy is another form of pharmaceutical exposure, for example, kissing someone who is on medication. Then there are medicated creams that have a powerful outgas. A large variety of medicated creams, from steroid creams to chemotherapy creams, outgas a very potent, pungent smell that the person using the cream is unaware of because they live in it. Breathing in this outgassing is exposure. Basic contact with shopping cart handles is another surprisingly source of exposure, because those handles are where a lot of pharmaceutical residue resides, often from pharmaceutical cream and sweat from individual palms, which contain pharmaceutical residue if they're on their medication. Pharmaceuticals and our brain. Next little section. Pharmaceuticals are manufactured to affect the brain or body in specific ways, generally stimulating or suppressing certain neurological or bodily processes. So when you take a medication, it could very well be for the purpose of trying to enhance or subdue particular functions of the brain. At the same time, pharmaceuticals can affect the functions of the brain in ways that aren't always ideal. That is, there are side effects, sometimes debilitating and life-altering, and even creating a dependency that outweighs the original problem for which the person took the medication. So medications, of course, when you're taking a medication, you're trying to change something. You're trying to change some chemical or some functioning of your body. Either something is overly producing or underproducing. So you're trying to change something. But what is that doing? If you are in a lot of pain and you take an Aleve or you take an Advil or something, you have that headache, whatever it is, why does it help, right? Why does it have the headache go away? And sometimes people have to take 3 or 4 Advils to have their headache go away. What is that doing? But a lot of the times, especially coming from my personal experience doing this when I was younger, I never thought about that. I was just like, well, this is what works. But did it work? No, it really didn't work. It maybe did work short term, but if it really worked, why was I getting another headache again? Why was it starting to wear off? Why did I need to up the dose of the medications? These are definitely things you need to think about if you're interested in lowering your pharmaceutical needs. If you don't want to live on 40 medications anymore, if you don't want to live on 30, maybe you're only taking 1 and you don't even want that. This is for you if you want to just learn some more. Medications can be in general toxic to all areas of the brain. Here's how it works. When a medication enters a person's body system, the liver absorbs some of it. Much of that medication enters the bloodstream directly, bypassing the liver at first, because some medications have an uncanny ability to absorb into your bloodstream through your mouth, throat, esophagus, stomach, and duodenum. When medications find their way as far as the small intestinal tract, that's when they find their way into the lining of the tract and eventually into the hepatic portal vein and up into the liver. Even medications that bypass the liver at first eventually find their way there through the bloodstream when the liver absorbs the medications as part of its bloodstream cleanup. In parentheses, the kidneys aren't the only part of the bloodstream cleanup equation. When the medication is out of your bloodstream, it's living somewhere else, such as stored deep inside the liver, where the medication is then time-released back into the bloodstream over future years. Inevitably, a stagnant, sluggish liver with a storage bin of old pharmaceuticals has to pop a cork every so often, releasing residuals that find their way to the brain if someone's not cleansing. That is, the liver is up against a lot when we don't know how to care for it. So it can't hold on to every brain betrayer forever. As the liver gets oversaturated with various cocktails of medication you might have taken long-term, including over-the-counter medications, it starts letting go of some. So they circulate through the bloodstream again and find their way back to the brain, no longer just affecting the receptors the medications were originally intended for. The longer the medications stay in the body, the more efficacy the medications lose for their intended purpose. Now the pharmaceutical brew can act as a toxic substance to the brain overall. Plus, pharmaceuticals contain toxic heavy metals. Pharmaceuticals also contain caffeine. These additives are part of how medications affect the brain so potently. Medications of any kind, whether intended for the brain or elsewhere, have the ability to get past the blood-brain barrier, which we have already read about. If you're not aware, and this is your first time, go and listen to the chapter labeled blood-brain barrier. So that was medications of any kind, whether intended for the brain or elsewhere, have the ability to get past the blood-brain barrier and enter every part of the brain because pharmaceuticals are tissue soluble. There's no part of the brain that's immune or unexposed. Medications also get stuck in the brain, in which case it doesn't get time released. It stays there indefinitely, raising toxicity levels within the brain tissue, slowly denaturing brain cells, and never leaving the brain until someone learns how to actively and proactively work to clean out their brain tissue. For information on how recreational drugs can affect your brain, see Chapter 11, which we have already read, on microdosing. Some medications can be, and also let's just take a deep breath there. That was a lot. Okay. All pharmaceuticals affect your brain. They're tissue soluble. They go right through the brain, and sometimes they just stay there, causing so many issues that we help with at For Energy. We help you guys. This is a lot, and this is overwhelming. It definitely can be. So me and Tenzin are your guides. We can help you. We help with nutrition advice. We help with juicing. We can help with recipes. We can help with nutrition reading and like label reading. When you look at the back and it's like, what do you look at? Do you look at the calories? Do you look at the saturated fat? Do you look at, what do you look at? You look at the ingredients. And we also help you read those ingredient labels because sometimes they can be tricky, which I think we'll read in this book. If not, we'll read in another book because I do have plans after I finish this to start other medical medium books. This is really fun, and yeah. And if you're interested, go to our Instagram. It's the number 4, and then it's INNERGY. That's energy, for energy. Go and look at us. Yeah, we have some helpful tips on there. So let's finish this off. We have one last paragraph, okay? Some medications can be useful in crisis situations, such as injuries or severe infections. There are times when they are truly necessary. What we need to be aware of is how long-term use of pharmaceuticals ends up saturating brain tissue and dampening the central nervous system's ability to perform. When we're not given answers from the medical industry about how to heal chronic illness, our symptoms and conditions continue for far too long. And we may find ourselves on medications for extended periods, with the medications possibly making our conditions worse. Medical research and science don't even know what the cause of chronic illness is to begin with, so they don't realize they could be making the condition worse from the medication. One thing to keep in mind is that sometimes multiple medications are prescribed by different doctors, creating a stronger brew than anyone intended that can alter or hinder the brain's ability to function optimally. If you're actively actively relying on medication, I respect that. You can still work on healing your brain and protecting it from the dozens of other brain betrayers in part 3. So that's the end of the chapter, real short chapter on pharmaceuticals. And just to reiterate what Anthony Williams was saying, some pharmaceuticals are necessary and they can be life-changing in some ways, but it's the times where you're taking them all the time, long term, like I was saying earlier, Advil, Tylenol, all these things. What happens when you're taking them day after day after day after day? What happens with periods? Pamperin. A lot of women take Pamperin on their period. Every single period, they'll take a Pamperin every single day of that period, which usually lasts 3 to 5 days, 3 to 7 days, depending on who you are, what you eat, all that kind of thing. How many Pamperins is that? That's a lot of Pamperin. At that point, that is you taking it chronically. Is that the word, chronically? Often, very often. And that adds up. So yeah, that was a brief but very knowledgeable, very factual chapter, okay? So we'll go ahead and read the next chapter in a few days on toxic heavy metals, which is perfect because, you know, in this chapter we were just talking about how toxic heavy metals are in pharmaceuticals. But what exactly are toxic heavy metals? So stay tuned for a few days on toxic heavy metals, chapter 20. All right, bye guys.